My greetings to you all learners. Today in this video we discuss my last Duchess written by the greatest Victorian poet Robert Browning. Robert Browning was born on 7th May 1812 and died on 12th December 1889. He was an English poet and playwright whose dramatic monologues made him one of the foremost Victorian poets. My Last Duchess is a dramatic monologue. It is written in 1842. In this poem, the Duke of Ferrara uses a painting of his former wife as a conversation piece. The Duke speaks about his former wife's perceived inadequacies to a representative of the family of his bride-to-be, revealing his obsession with controlling others in the process. Browning uses this compelling psychological portrait of a despicable character to critique the objectification of women and abuses of power. The speaker, that is the Duke of Ferrara, directs the attention of a guest to a painting of his former wife, the Duchess of Ferrara, which hangs on the wall. The Duke praises the painting for looking so lifelike and then remarks on how hard the painter, Fra Pandolf, worked hard on it. The Duke asks the guest to sit and look at the work. The Duke then explains that he deliberately mentioned the name of the painter because strangers like the emissary always look at the Duchess' painted face with its deep, passionate and earnest glance and turn to the Duke. And only the Duke, since only he pulls back the curtain that reveals the painting, and act as though they would ask, if they dared, how an expression like that came into her face. The Duke reiterates that the guest is not the person to ask this question. The Duke continues by saying that it wasn't only his presence that brought that look into the painted eyes of the Duchess, or the blush of happiness into her painted cheek. He suggests that perhaps Fra Pandolf had happened to compliment her by saying her shawl drapes over her wrist too much, or pain could never recreate the faint half blush that is fading on her throat. The Duke insists that the former Duchess thought that polite comments like those were reason enough to blush and criticize her in a halting way for being too easily made happy or impressed. He also claims that she liked everything and everyone she saw, although his description suggests that she was ogling everyone who crossed her path. The Duke objects that, to his former Duchess, everything was the same and made her equally happy, whether it was a brooch or present from him that she wore at her chest, the sun setting in the west, a branch of cherries which some inferring person snapped off a tree in the orchard for her, or the white mule she rode on around the terrace. He claims that she would say the same kind words or give the same blush in response to all of them. The Duke also objects to her manner of thanking men, although he struggles to describe his concerns. Specifically, he complains that she values his pedigree and social position of his 900-year-old name as equally important to anyone else gives to her. The Duke rhetorically asks whether anyone would actually lower themselves enough to argue with someone about their behavior. The Duke imagines a hypothetical situation in which he would confront the former Duchess. He says that even if he were good with words and were able to clearly say, "This characteristic of yours disgusts me," or "Here you did too little or too much," and if the former Duchess had let herself be degraded by changing instead of being stubborn and making excuses, that even then the act of confronting her would be beneath him. And he refuses to ever lower himself like that. The Duke then turns to his earlier refrain about his former wife's indiscriminate happiness and complains to his guest that while the Duchess did smile at him whenever they passed, she gave everyone else the same smile as well. The Duke explains. He explains that she began smiling at others even more, so he gave orders, and all her smiles stopped forever, presumably because he had killed her. Now she only lives on the painting. The Duke then asked the guest to stand up and to go with him to meet the rest of the guests downstairs. He also says that the Count, revealed here as the guest master and the father of the Duke's prospective bride to be, is so known for his generosity in matters of money that no request the Duke could make for a dowry could be turned down. The Duke also adds quickly that he has always insisted since the beginning of their discussions that the Count's beautiful daughter and not the dowry is his primary objective. The Duke ends his speech by demanding that he and the Count's emissary go downstairs together, and on their way, he directs the emissary's attention to a statue of the god Neptune taming a seahorse, which is a rare work of art that Claus of Innsbruck cast in bronze specially for him. So that is how the poem ends. And this poem, My Last Duchess, is a poem frequently anthologized as an example of dramatic monologue. It's an example of dramatic monologue, and the poem is composed in 28 rhyming couplets and of iambic pentameter. That's all about the poem. Thank you. Hope you have understood.